Two brothers. One dream. To become millionaires. A story that will move you, inspire you, and teach you what it truly means to win, and what it takes to protect everything you build. And listen closely. If you're watching this right now, it's because you are already a millionaire in your mind. And soon, in your reality. Watch this story until the end. Learn the steps that every future millionaire must take, and the traps you must avoid once success finds you. This is more than just a story. It's a life lesson written for you. Because just like I believe, deep down you believe it too. You were born to be a millionaire. So let's dive into today's powerful story. And before we start, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and remember, this channel was made for people like you. People who know they were destined for greatness. Let's go! A 5-second message. Are you in debt? Want to know how to always have money? After watching this video, click the first link below, in the description or the pinned comment. Discover the Live Always with Money method. Find out the 10 steps that are changing lives. Link in the description and pinned comment. And for you, the one who knows you were born to be a millionaire, to be rich, I invite you to discover how to get rich through the power of thought. Access the method in the description. Golden Mindset, 30 Steps to Wealth Through the Power of the Mind. The dream was born. Versão, expandida. In a tiny, overlooked town forgotten by time and progress, two brothers, Ethan and Liam, grew up in a crumbling house at the end of a dusty road. Their world was made of peeling paint, broken windows, and empty kitchen cabinets. The air smelled of old wood and quiet desperation, the kind that wraps around a soul like a heavy blanket. Despite the overwhelming silence of poverty, something louder lived inside them, a fire that refused to die. Ethan, the elder by 2 years, always spoke first about their future. Liam, wide-eyed and hopeful, clung to every word like a lifeline. Their conversations, whispered in the dark beneath thin, tattered blankets, became the blueprint for a dream much bigger than their circumstances. Each night, after long days filled with small burdens and bigger disappointments, they would escape outside, lying side by side on the brittle grass. The stars stretched out like a promise above them, endless, untouchable, yet somehow reachable if they just believed hard enough. One day, Ethan would say, his voice trembling not with fear, but with certainty, "We'll be free." One day, Liam would echo, the words carrying their souls higher than their bodies could ever hope to climb at that moment. Their dream wasn't selfish. It wasn't built on greed or the desire to impress others. It was born out of survival, a desperate craving for dignity, choice, and a life where they didn't have to apologize for simply existing. In a place where most people settled for what little they had, these two brothers dared to want more. They dared to imagine a life where the chains of scarcity were shattered forever. Money, to them, symbolized more than luxury. It was the key to unlocking doors that had been slammed in their faces since birth. It was a ticket to a world where they could walk into a store without counting coins, where they could offer their mother a home that didn't leak when it rained, where they could breathe without the constant weight of not enough. During the day, they helped their father fix broken fences and carried groceries for neighbors to earn a few coins. At night, they built castles in the sky with words, each sentence stacking hope upon hope, vision upon vision. They dreamed not just of money, but of purpose, of waking up without the ache of shame, of seeing their names respected, of proving to everyone, and especially to themselves, that greatness could rise even from cracked sidewalks and empty pockets. Nobody around them understood. The townspeople, worn down by generations of lost dreams, would chuckle and shake their heads. "Dreams are for fools," they'd say. "Be grateful for what little you have." But Ethan and Liam never listened. They understood something the others didn't. Dreams weren't foolish. Settling was. The hunger inside them wasn't just for food. It was a hunger for life. A deep, unrelenting belief that the life they were born into wasn't the life they were destined to live. And so, night after night, beneath a battered sky and surrounded by a world that expected nothing of them, they promised each other something sacred. No matter how hard it got, no matter how far they had to go, they would rise. They would chase the stars until the stars bowed down to them. They would become millionaires, not just for themselves, but for every forgotten soul who once dared to dream. A 5-second message. Are you in debt? Want to know how to always have money? After watching this video, click the first link below, in the description or the pinned comment. Discover the Live Always with Money method. Find out the 10 steps that are changing lives. Link in the description and pinned comment. And for you, the one who knows you were born to be a millionaire, to be rich, I invite you to discover how to get rich through the power of thought. Access the method in the description. Golden Mindset, 30 Steps to Wealth Through the Power of the Mind. Fighting together. Versão expandida. The morning started before the sun had a chance to rise. Ethan and Liam, fueled by a hunger that went far beyond the need for breakfast, dragged their tired bodies from worn-out mattresses and faced the world with calloused hands and determined eyes. There were no shortcuts. There were no favors. Only sweat, effort, and an endless cycle of small beginnings. They scrubbed grime from rusted vehicles until their fingers bled, pushing cracked sponges across dented metal with the intensity of warriors. They carried heavy crates in bustling street markets, weaving between crowds, shouting above the noise to sell fresh fruit and old dreams. On rainy afternoons, soaked to the bone, they set up makeshift stands on corners, offering steaming pastries to passers-by who often didn't even glance their way. When the sun dipped and the streets emptied, they refused to rest. Construction sites, abandoned after long shifts, became their temporary shelters. Cement dust clung to their clothes, the chill of the night biting into their skin, yet they never complained. In their hearts, every hardship was another step closer to the life they envisioned. They turned coins into currency for their ambition, saving every crumpled bill, every tarnished quarter, every loose dime. Other boys their age chased distractions, surrendered devices, lost themselves in temporary pleasures. Ethan and Liam chased something bigger, a future so vivid they could taste it. Hunger gnawed at their stomachs more than once. Some evenings, they shared a single loaf of bread, dividing it into equal parts with reverence, laughing as if it were a feast. Hope was their real nourishment. Faith, their hidden reservoir of strength. Their clothes were worn thin, patched over and over again by their mother's trembling hands. Shoes were held together by stubbornness and string. And still they smiled. Not because life was easy, but because every drop of sweat, every night spent shivering on concrete floors, was evidence that they were moving. They knew nobody was coming to save them. No magic solution would appear. Their success would be built brick by brick from the ruins of their exhaustion. Through long shifts and relentless days, they found ways to lift each other. When one grew tired, the other whispered, "Remember why we started." When the world felt unbearably heavy, they leaned on memories of dreams shared under open skies. Poverty tried to crush them. Weariness tried to seduce them into giving up. Doubt tried to creep into the spaces between their victories. But unity kept them alive. Brotherhood became their greatest weapon. Where one soul might have crumbled alone, together they built an unbreakable foundation of resilience. It wasn't grand victories that defined their journey during those days. It was the countless, invisible battles they fought in silence. The battle to stay honest when shortcuts appeared. The battle to stay generous when scarcity whispered selfishness. The battle to smile when everything in them wanted to scream. Their fight wasn't pretty. It wasn't celebrated. No crowds cheered their effort. No medals adorned their necks. But every scraped knuckle, every frostbitten toe, every sleepless night was an invisible badge of honor. They weren't just fighting for money. They were fighting for themselves. For the right to dream without apology. For the freedom their hearts craved more fiercely than anything else. In the silent, unseen trenches of daily struggle, Ethan and Liam crafted something far more valuable than dollars. They built discipline. They built grit. They built a bond of loyalty stronger than anything adversity could throw at them. And every time the darkness of exhaustion tried to snuff them out, they answered with a simple, stubborn vow whispered through cracked lips. One day we'll get there. The first victory. After countless seasons of sacrifice, a new dawn finally broke through the fog of hardship. The morning was ordinary, birds singing, streets buzzing, yet for Ethan and Liam, everything had changed. A dream, once so distant it seemed like fantasy, had crossed the invisible line into reality. Their modest business, built with bare hands and stubborn hearts, began to flourish. At first, there were only tiny sparks. A satisfied customer, a deal sealed after months of negotiation, a small profit here and there. But momentum grew quietly, like seeds taking root beneath frozen soil, waiting for the right moment to burst forth. One chilly afternoon, hunched over a battered desk littered with crumpled receipts and coffee-stained papers, Ethan did the math once again, carefully, methodically, as if afraid hope might cloud his judgment. And then it happened. The numbers didn't lie. They had crossed it. The impossible threshold. Their first million. For a moment, neither spoke. The air thickened around them, pressing down with a weight heavier than exhaustion or hunger had ever been. When Ethan finally whispered the words, "We did it," Liam's face crumbled into tears. Without hesitation, they fell into each other's arms, not as hardened young men shaped by relentless battles, but as the same fragile boys who had once stared into endless night skies, dreaming bigger than their world permitted. They cried openly, shamelessly. Years of buried frustration, silent prayers, sleepless nights, bitter rejections, and lonely roads came rushing out in waves. It wasn't just about money. It was validation. It was proof that faith, when mixed with action and perseverance, could forge miracles. They remembered every cold night huddled beneath thin jackets, every stinging insult thrown by those who doubted them, every aching bone that had pleaded for rest when giving up would have been so easy. None of it had been wasted. Every tear shed in private, every meal skipped to save pennies, every sacrifice had led to this moment. The office was tiny, cramped, barely lit by a flickering fluorescent bulb. The walls were cracked. The carpet smelled of dampness. Yet it felt grander than any palace because in that instant, they weren't surrounded by poverty, they were wrapped in glory. Their smiles stretched until their faces hurt. Their laughter echoed off the peeling walls, filling the tiny room with a sound more beautiful than any symphony. They weren't celebrating wealth. They were celebrating survival, brotherhood, unbreakable belief. Holding on to each other, they let the magnitude of the moment sink deep into their bones. This was their beginning, carved with raw hands and stubborn hope, forged in trials most wouldn't have survived. They thought about their mother, how she used to patch their torn clothes by candlelight. They thought about the promises whispered under cold stars. They thought about the countless nights they had tasted defeat but spit it out defiantly, choosing instead to hunger for something greater. Now that hunger had been rewarded, not by luck, not by chance, but by relentless commitment stitched together with unbreakable trust. No one had gifted them this triumph. No one had paved their road. It was theirs alone, hard-earned, rightfully claimed, and deeply, deeply cherished. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of fire and gold, Ethan and Liam stood by the cracked window, arms around each other's shoulders, gazing outward. The world hadn't changed. The streets were still rough. The city still buzzed with the hum of ordinary struggle. But inside them, something monumental had shifted. They were no longer dreamers reaching for impossible heights. They were proof that mountains could move when hearts refused to yield. And in that fleeting, eternal moment, they knew with absolute certainty, this was only the beginning. Different roads. Success draped their lives in luxuries they had once only dared to imagine. Gleaming cars lined their driveways, towering houses overlooked sparkling city lights, and passports filled with stamps from distant shores told stories of triumph. The fruits of their labor were now tangible, undeniable. They had won a battle many never even dared to fight. At first, it seemed like the fairy tale was complete. They shared laughter over expensive dinners, exchanged gifts without counting the cost, and toasted to victories under chandeliers that shimmered like captured stars. From the outside, it appeared as if they had everything they could ever want. Yet beneath the glittering surface, small cracks began to form. Silent, almost invisible, but growing steadily. Ethan, always the dreamer with a heart wide open, found something even greater than material success. He met her on an ordinary afternoon, and within weeks, it was clear that destiny had placed her in his path. Their love blossomed effortlessly, like flowers pushing through the hardest concrete. Their wedding was simple compared to their means, yet richer in meaning than any grand event could have offered. Ethan embraced fatherhood with a tenderness that surprised even him. Little footsteps echoed through his sprawling home, tiny hands clutched his fingers, and innocent laughter filled every corner with warmth. In building a family, Ethan discovered a deeper wealth, one that no bank account could measure. His joy grew beyond business deals and expanding empires. It grew in bedtime stories, school plays, quiet Sunday mornings filled with pancake batter and messy smiles. Meanwhile, Liam stood apart, an observer to a life that felt increasingly foreign. His fortune was intact, his achievements undeniable, yet an invisible emptiness gnawed at him. Parties came and went, faces blurred together, Nights ended in grand hotel rooms that felt unbearably hollow. He tried to drown the loneliness in new ventures, faster cars, louder celebrations, but the silence always followed him home. Watching Ethan thrive in ways that money couldn't buy stirred something dark inside Liam. Questions he never voiced haunted him. Why does happiness come so easily for him? Why does love seem to pass me by? Wasn't success supposed to fix everything? Envy wasn't sudden. It crept in slowly, disguised at first as restlessness, a vague dissatisfaction he couldn't quite name. Seeing Ethan with his wife, hearing the laughter of his children, it began to feel like a mirror reflecting back Liam's own solitude. The larger his bank account grew, the smaller his heart seemed to feel. He smiled at family gatherings, raised his glass at celebrations, played the role expected of him. But inside, a storm brewed. A silent, bitter tempest. Not because he hated Ethan, he loved his brother still, but because he couldn't understand why the same journey had led them to such different destinations. While Ethan's world was filled with warmth, Liam's world echoed with absence. He built towering achievements, but they felt like sandcastles collapsing under invisible waves. He achieved every dream they once whispered under the stars, yet happiness slipped through his fingers like water he could not hold. They had walked side by side for so long, fought the same battles, endured identical hardships. Yet somewhere along the way, their paths had forked, carrying them to places neither had expected. Liam often stood alone on his vast balcony, city lights sprawling endlessly below, wondering how a man could possess everything and still feel poorer than he ever had as a barefoot boy sharing half a loaf of bread with his brother. Success had changed them. Wealth had opened doors. But it also revealed truths neither of them had been prepared to face. Money could buy houses, vacations, cars, but it couldn't purchase fulfillment. And it certainly couldn't mend the silent ache of a lonely heart. The silent envy. At first, Liam laughed at himself. Jealousy? It seemed absurd. They had both climbed the same mountain, shared the same struggles, and basked in the same triumphs. He convinced himself that any discomfort he felt was fleeting, a trick of exhaustion or a symptom of stress. But envy doesn't shout, it whispers. And slowly, those whispers grew louder. What began as a passing thought settled like a shadow over Liam's heart. In quiet moments, when the celebrations ended and the crowds disappeared, the questions would creep in, unwanted and relentless. Why does he get to have it all? Haven't I worked just as hard? Don't I deserve happiness too? He would stare at his reflection late at night, trying to shake the bitterness clinging to his chest. He told himself it was just frustration, just fatigue. But deep down, a darker seed had been planted. A seed that twisted every joyful image of Ethan's life into a reminder of Liam's own perceived failures. Each success of Ethan's began to feel like an insult. Each photograph of his brother's smiling family seemed to mock him. Each moment of laughter that wasn't shared with him gnawed at the fragile walls he tried to build around his resentment. Liam's heart, once full of pride for his brother, began to turn cold. He stopped celebrating Ethan's milestones. He stopped calling as often. When they met, his smiles were tighter, his congratulations hollow. The warmth between them thinned, replaced by polite conversations that tiptoed around the growing chasm neither dared to name. The most painful part wasn't the jealousy itself, it was the shame. Liam hated the bitterness blooming inside him. He hated that he, who had once fought so fiercely for their shared dream, now found himself secretly resenting the very person who had helped him build it. But hatred for oneself can be even more corrosive than hatred for others. In moments of clarity, Liam would close his eyes and remember the boys they once were. He would recall nights spent dreaming under broken roofs, when they had nothing but each other. He would hear Ethan's voice, full of unwavering hope, promising they'd make it, together. Those memories should have been a bomb. Instead, they became knives. He wondered if Ethan noticed, if his brother saw the storm gathering behind Liam's forced smiles. Sometimes, in Ethan's kind eyes, Liam thought he caught a flicker of concern, but pride silenced every opportunity for confession. How could he admit that he was drowning in emotions he didn't understand, poisoned by a jealousy that felt both foreign and inevitable? Liam tried to distract himself with more businesses, more parties, more accolades. But no amount of more could silence the gnawing emptiness. No amount of noise could drown out the inner voice that asked, again and again, why is his happiness different from mine? He built walls around his heart, thicker with every passing month, isolating himself from the only person who might have understood. And as those walls rose, so did the envy, now no longer silent but roaring inside him, hungry and uncontainable. It wasn't about money anymore. It wasn't about success. It was about something far more painful, the belief that somehow, despite all he had achieved, he was still second best, that the universe had dealt him a crueler hand, one not measured by wealth, but by an invisible, unbearable loneliness. Envy had seeped into his soul, twisting the dream they once cherished into a bitter, burning scar. And Liam, once a fighter for hope, now battled demons he had never been prepared to face. Demons he had unknowingly invited in, one small silent thought at a time. The poison inside. Liam's heart, once vibrant with brotherly love, had become a wasteland. Not overnight, not with a single event, but drip by drip, like a slow, silent leak that, left unchecked, eventually floods and drowns. At first, he still tried to wear the mask. He showed up at family gatherings, he clinked glasses, he forced laughter at jokes he barely heard. But inside, he wasn't celebrating Ethan's happiness anymore. He was choking on it. Each smile Ethan wore felt like a blade twisting deeper into Liam's ribs. The resentment wasn't just anger. It was betrayal. In his poisoned mind, Liam twisted the story of their lives. He rewrote memories, erasing the brotherhood and replacing it with imagined injustices. He told himself that Ethan had stolen the dream they built together, siphoning away not just fortune, but joy, as if there were a limited supply, and Ethan had selfishly claimed it all. Bitterness became his constant companion. He woke up with it, carried it through his days, tucked it in beside him at night. It clung to his skin like a second shadow, whispering in his ear that he had been wronged, that he was the true victim. His heart no longer beat in rhythm with hope or gratitude. It pulsed with cold, corrosive fury. Ethan, in Liam's warped eyes, wasn't a brother anymore. He was a thief, a traitor, a reminder of everything Liam lacked but believed he had earned. The poison inside him infected his vision, his choices, his very soul. He stopped building for the future and started scheming for revenge he couldn't even articulate clearly. It wasn't about taking something specific away from Ethan. It was about restoring a twisted sense of balance, tipping the scales back in his favor, no matter the cost. Friends noticed the change. Business partners kept their distance. The warmth Liam once radiated had evaporated, replaced by a coldness so intense it seemed to freeze the air around him. His words became sharper, his gaze harder, his laughter, when it came, hollow and unsettling. He became a master of pretending, a craftsman of false smiles and tight handshakes. But behind closed doors, he simmered in silent rage, reliving imagined slights, replaying moments where he should have been happier, richer, fuller, if only Ethan hadn't taken what was rightfully his. The poison seeped into every relationship Liam had left. He trusted no one, admired no one, loved no one. Even the good memories he shared with Ethan were tainted, reinterpreted through the lens of betrayal. Moments that should have been golden were now viewed as setups, traps, evidence that Ethan had always been one step ahead, secretly plotting his victory. Inside, the Liam who once dreamed under the stars was dying. In his place, something darker grew, something unrecognizable. A man whose ambition had curdled into obsession. A man who no longer believed in brotherhood, only in battles won or lost. And perhaps the cruelest irony of all was that Ethan never knew. He still believed they were brothers, still carried the hope that no success, no fortune, no life changes could break the bond they forged as boys. But love, no matter how deep, cannot survive when one heart turns to ice. And Liam's heart was frozen solid, a fortress of pain, anger, and envy so thick that not even the light of their shared past could thaw it. Where once there had been dreams and promises whispered to the stars, now there was only a silent, seething void, and a man so consumed by his own bitterness that he could no longer see the difference between justice and destruction. The ultimate betrayal. Rage has a way of blinding even the best hearts, and for Liam, the fury inside had long eclipsed any remnants of reason. Every success Ethan achieved felt like another slap to the face, another confirmation that Liam had been left behind, forgotten. Logic no longer lived inside him, only a gnawing hunger for vengeance. It started with small acts, almost harmless in appearance. Anonymous negative reviews against Ethan's businesses. Subtle rumors whispered to investors, causing deals to fall apart before Ethan even realized what had happened. Liam watched from the shadows, feeding on every setback, every moment of confusion on Ethan's face, every crack he managed to create in his brother's world. It gave him a sick satisfaction, a fleeting sense of power he had long craved. But the small victories weren't enough. The fire inside demanded more, demanded devastation. And Liam, once a boy who had dreamed of reaching the stars, now dreamed only of pulling his brother down into darkness. He orchestrated meetings behind Ethan's back, manipulating partners, sowing distrust. He spread lies so expertly that even Ethan's closest friends began to doubt him. A whisper here, a suggestion there, and slowly, a network of deceit grew around Ethan, tightening like a noose. Still, Ethan fought. Still, he smiled, held his family close, rebuilt what was torn apart. Each time Ethan rose from the ashes, it stoked a deeper hatred in Liam's soul. It wasn't enough to watch him struggle. Liam needed him to fall, completely and irrevocably. He needed Ethan to feel the cold, paralyzing emptiness he had been drowning in for years. And then, one night, under a sky that once held their childhood dreams, Liam crossed the line. Fueled by a cocktail of jealousy, rage, and twisted grief, he decided words and sabotage were no longer enough. The poison inside him demanded blood. Real, irreversible destruction. It wasn't premeditated in the way crimes often are. There was no grand scheme, no carefully laid plan. Just a moment, one tragic, burning moment, when Liam's hatred overpowered every ounce of humanity left inside him. They met by chance that night. A charity event Ethan had organized. One more shining example of his perfect life. Liam watched from afar, his fists clenched, heart pounding in his chest like a war drum. Every laugh Ethan shared, every grateful handshake he received, was fuel to the wildfire raging inside Liam's mind. As the night wore on and the crowds thinned, fate placed them alone for a brief, terrible moment. Words were exchanged, sharp, venomous, heavy with years of silent resentment. Ethan, unaware of the full depth of Liam's darkness, tried to reach out, to mend what he didn't fully understand was broken. But Liam saw the gesture not as an offering of peace, but as another insult. Another proof that Ethan stood above him. Pity, he thought bitterly. His brother was pitying him. Something inside him snapped. A lifetime of bitterness, loneliness, and despair erupted in one horrifying act of violence. No one saw the first blow. No one heard the first scream. It was over in seconds, a blur of fists, fury, and blind, desperate hatred. Liam didn't recognize himself. He wasn't thinking. He wasn't feeling. He was simply acting, a marionette jerked by strings of fury so deep they felt eternal. When it was done, when Ethan lay broken and bloody on the ground, reality crashed back in like a tidal wave. The horror of his actions gripped Liam's chest, but it was too late. The boy who had once held his brother's hand under the starlit sky had become the man who tried to extinguish that very light forever. As sirens wailed in the distance, Liam stumbled back into the shadows, heart hammering, mind numb. He barely understood what he had done. He only knew one thing. There was no going back. The ultimate betrayal had been committed. A betrayal so profound it shattered not only their bond but something fundamental inside Liam himself. He hadn't just attacked Ethan. He had destroyed a piece of himself, the last pure thing he still possessed. Guilt didn't rush in immediately. For a while, there was only emptiness, a vast, hollow silence where the dream of two brothers had once lived. And in that silence, the weight of his actions pressed down harder than any burden he had ever carried. The stars above, the ones they once dreamed under, bore silent witness to what envy had wrought. Not every battle fought inside the human heart can be won. And sometimes, the greatest losses are the ones we inflict upon ourselves. The foe, dreams, once so vibrant, can collapse without warning, like ancient structures eaten away from within. The fortress Ethan and Liam had built, brick by brick, memory by memory, sacrifice by sacrifice, stood no chance against the rot that had taken hold inside Liam's soul. It wasn't money that shattered their bond. It wasn't success that poisoned their love. It was a slow corrosion, an invisible toxin that spread from one wounded heart into the foundation of everything they had once believed in. Bitterness had whispered lies until truth became unrecognizable. And in the deafening silence after the betrayal, the world they knew fell apart. Their businesses, once thriving monuments to perseverance, began to wither. Without Ethan's leadership, deals faltered, Partnerships dissolved. Clients pulled away, sensing the instability lurking beneath the polished facade. What once had been a story of hope, of triumph against impossible odds, unraveled into a cautionary tale nobody wanted to touch. Ethan, broken in body and spirit, could not bear the weight alone. He tried at first, stubbornly, bravely, but the pain was too deep, the scars too fresh. Every boardroom meeting, every news article, every handshake reminded him of the brother who had once stood beside him and now stood against him. Liam, meanwhile, wandered through the ruins he had helped create, haunted by ghosts he couldn't outrun. The victories he had once craved brought no comfort now. The empty bank accounts, the deserted offices, the silence where laughter once lived, they were monuments to his own undoing. He hadn't just destroyed Ethan's world. He had torched his own future, too. Neighbors who once admired their story spoke in hushed tones, shaking their heads. Friends who once celebrated their milestones drifted away, unable to look at the wreckage without feeling the weight of tragedy. The town that had once cheered their ascent now mourned their fall, a fall not caused by forces beyond their control but by wounds inflicted from within. There were no heroes left in their story. No villains either, only two boys, once full of dreams, now trapped in an endless winter of regret. Photographs faded on walls where proud memories once hung. The trophies they had fought for gathered dust in abandoned rooms. The stars they had gazed upon as children still shone above them, indifferent to the devastation below. Ethan retreated from the world. The light in his eyes, once fierce and full of wonder, dimmed to a quiet, guarded flicker. Love became harder for him, trusting, even harder still. Every door he closed behind him felt like locking another piece of his heart away, unreachable even to those who wished to heal it. Liam wandered, a man exiled from the only kingdom he had ever cared about. Money didn't matter anymore. He had some left, enough to live on, but it tasted like ash in his mouth. The luxury cars, the fine clothes, the exotic vacations. None could silence the voice in his head reminding him of what he had lost. And no material possession could ever rebuild the bridge he had burned to ashes with his own hands. The fall wasn't loud like a crash or an explosion. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that screams louder than any sound. A slow, aching disintegration, like watching the tide pull a sandcastle into the sea, grain by grain, until nothing remained but a flat, empty shore. Both men lived in that emptiness. Two sides of a broken mirror, reflecting the same wound from different angles. They had been brothers, partners, dreamers, warriors standing shoulder to shoulder against the world. Now they were strangers, separated not by miles, but by choices. Choices carved into stone by anger, by pride, by envy. And the most devastating truth? It could have been avoided. At any moment, a conversation, a confession, a single act of forgiveness might have turned the tide. But pride, once it hardens, becomes heavier than chains. And neither Ethan nor Liam, once so close they could read each other's thoughts, found the strength to lay down their arms. The fall was not a singular moment. It was 1,000 small betrayals, 1,000 missed opportunities to choose love over resentment. Each one a tiny crack, invisible at first, until the structure that held them together finally collapsed. By the time they realized what they had lost, the dream they had bled for was already buried. And standing over its grave, all that remained was silence, and the endless haunting question. What if we had loved each other more than we loved the dream? The lesson. Becoming millionaires didn't destroy Ethan and Liam. It wasn't the accumulation of gold, the towering houses, or the roaring engines of luxury cars that broke their bond. Wealth merely lifted the curtain, exposing what had always been hidden deep within their souls. Money is not a villain. It is neither a savior nor a curse. It is a mirror. It reflects the spirit of the one who possesses it. For some, it magnifies kindness, generosity, and love. For others, it amplifies wounds, fears, and silent wars never addressed. The journey toward wealth had demanded sacrifices, sleep, comfort, safety, security, but it had never demanded the sacrifice of their hearts. That was a choice. One made slowly, almost imperceptibly, until it became irreversible. The truth is simple yet brutal. No external achievement can repair an internal void. $1 million cannot patch the holes left by bitterness. Success cannot silence the voices of insecurity echoing inside a wounded heart. Luxury cannot soothe a conscience tormented by betrayal. Liam's downfall was not the result of too much wealth. It was the result of allowing resentment to grow stronger than gratitude. He forgot the nights when he and Ethan dreamed beneath endless skies, promising loyalty above all else. He forgot the cold streets they slept on, the hunger they endured, the battles fought side by side. Instead, he let comparison infect him, until all he could see was what he lacked instead of everything he had built. Comparison is a thief, not of money, but of joy. It transforms abundance into scarcity, victories into failures, blessings into burdens. Liam had everything they once longed for, yet in the shadows of his brother's happiness, he convinced himself he had nothing. Ethan, too, learned his lesson. Through pain, through heartbreak, he realized that success must be guarded not just against external threats, but internal ones as well. That humility must grow even faster than wealth. That character must be nurtured even more fiercely than ambition. The dream of wealth remains beautiful. It inspires innovation, creativity, courage. It fuels revolutions, feeds families, builds futures. But if the heart behind the dream is cracked, if envy sits where gratitude should be, if pride replaces humility, the dream mutates into something monstrous. True prosperity starts within. It grows from honesty, loyalty, integrity. It blossoms not from outshining others, but from becoming the truest version of yourself. Ethan and Liam's tragedy is not unique. Throughout history, countless souls have climbed the towering peaks of success only to find themselves lonelier, angrier, emptier at the summit. Because no elevation can fill a hollow heart. No altitude can cure a sickness carried deep within. Wealth tests the soul. It doesn't create your character. It reveals it. It asks quiet questions in moments no one else can hear. Will you stay kind when you have the power not to be? Will you share when you have enough for yourself? Will you remember who you were before the world knew your name? Will you celebrate others' joys as fiercely as your own? Many dream of millions. Few prepare their hearts to carry that responsibility. The real treasure was never the money, the status, the fame. It was the bond forged through shared struggle, the dreams whispered under starlit skies, the laughter in the midst of nothingness. Those were priceless. Those were irreplaceable. When Liam allowed bitterness to consume him, he traded everything of true value for illusions that crumbled like dust in his hands. And in the end, he discovered the harshest truth. You can lose gold and find more. You can lose houses and rebuild better ones. You can lose fame and create a new legacy. But once trust is shattered, once love is betrayed, some losses cannot be undone. The lesson carved into Ethan and Liam's story is one every dreamer must understand. Wealth achieved without soul is poverty in disguise. Millionaires aren't made by the number of digits in their bank accounts. They're made by the strength of their hearts, the resilience of their spirits, the goodness of their souls. Real millionaires love harder, forgive faster, give more, trust deeper. Because they know, everything material can be taken in an instant. But who you become in the journey can never be stolen. So chase your dreams with all your might. Build your empire, raise your banners high. But guard your heart with even greater intensity. Because the greatest fortune you'll ever possess is not what you earn. It's who you become while earning it. A message to dreamers. If you dream of becoming a millionaire, hold your head high. You are not foolish. You are not greedy. You are not chasing an illusion. You are reaching for a future where your talents, your courage, and your relentless spirit are finally rewarded. Never let the world shame you for dreaming big. Never apologize for wanting to rise above the circumstances you were born into. Dreams are the fuel of change. Every towering city, every soaring invention, every revolution of history, all of it was once a fragile dream inside someone's heart. If the fire burns within you, fan it, protect it, guard it against voices that will try to smother it. There will be doubters. There will be those who gave up on their own dreams and now seek to destroy yours. Listen not to their fear. Listen to your own inner roar. Becoming wealthy is not a betrayal of your roots. It is proof that you believed enough in yourself to break barriers others thought were unbreakable. It is a statement, I am more than what I was handed. Fight, build, grow, fail, and stand again. Lose, and rise stronger. Face closed doors with unshakable persistence. Turn every no into a louder yes within your soul. But while you pursue fortune with all the energy in your bones, never forget, The heart you carry is more valuable than any treasure you will ever acquire. Your compassion must grow faster than your profits. Your kindness must shine brighter than your possessions. Your gratitude must echo louder than your accomplishments. Money will open doors. It will give you choices. It will lift burdens not only from your shoulders but from the backs of those you love. But it will also test you. It will whisper temptations in moments of victory. It will challenge you to stay grounded when the world tries to place you on a pedestal. Protect your heart more fiercely than your bank account. Build character as diligently as you build wealth. Remember your humble beginnings even when you're sitting at tables of kings. Honor the friends who stood beside you when you had nothing, not just the ones who applaud you now. Let success be a tool for love. Use it to heal wounds, uplift dreams, change destinies. Help others rise as you rise. Become a lighthouse, not a fortress. Never allow success to mutate into arrogance. Never allow riches to harden your smile or close your arms. Never measure your worth by the size of your estate, but by the size of your spirit. Becoming rich is not the end of the story. It is the beginning of a far greater challenge. The challenge to remain true when you have every opportunity not to be. The challenge to be generous when you could be selfish. The challenge to be humble when you could boast. The challenge to give back when the world expects you to take more. Wealth without wisdom is a tragedy. Success without soul is an empty crown. True richness is waking up each day with peace in your heart. It's looking in the mirror and being proud of the reflection. It's knowing that no amount of zeros can add more to your worth, because your true value was never measured in currency to begin with. If you chase your dreams with open hands and a pure heart, you are already richer than most. Because you have something rare, a spirit untouched by bitterness, a mind unchained by fear, and a vision that stretches far beyond yourself. So dream. Dream wildly. Dream unapologetically. Dream until your dreams scare you, and then dream even bigger. But as you climb the ladders of success, make sure your soul climbs with you. Plant your roots deeper even as you reach higher. Shine brighter, but stay warmer. The world needs more wealthy hearts, not just wealthy bank accounts. The world needs more millionaires who lift others as they rise, who inspire, who heal, who build bridges instead of walls. You, dreamer, are already one step ahead simply because you have chosen to believe, not just in wealth, but in a greater version of yourself. You are not running after money. You are running toward your destiny. And that is the truest richness of all. A 5-second message. Are you in debt? Want to know how to always have money? After watching this video, click the first link below, in the description or the pinned comment. Discover the Live Always with Money method. Find out the 10 steps that are changing lives. Link in the description and pinned comment. And for you, the one who knows you were born to be a millionaire, to be rich, I invite you to discover how to get rich through the power of thought. Access the method in the description. Golden Mindset, 30 Steps to Wealth Through the Power of the Mind.